everyone, Boardgame Brody here with Meeple Mountain. I have a brand new prototype copy of Iron Forest. It's the new flicking dexterity game by Brain Games. So let's get right into it. The box will come with multiple boxes and components to build a playing field. This consists of a lower board built together and then an upper board built together. Players will break themselves into two teams. The game is for 2 to 4 players, so if you are playing with 3 players, you should put the most experienced player with the least experienced player, and the middle player will be on their own team. With 4 players, you will divide yourself into 2 players on each team, and if you have 2 players, it's 1 versus 1. One team plays as the Animal Clan, and the other will play as the Iron Force. Randomly choose a team to go first. When playing in a 3 or 4 player team, you have turn order tokens that are assigned to each player, and this will help keep track of the game and keep it organized. In a 2-player game, you will simply go back and forth taking turns, but in the others, you will use those turn order tokens. So the team that goes first will have the odd turn order tokens, and the other team will have the even ones. So everyone will have one, and that's how you will determine the turn order. Players will start with a number of power-up cards, depending on how many players are playing in the game. These power-up cards are ways to break the normal rules in the game and give you an edge in the game as well. All figures are placed on their depots on the board to begin, and a scenario is then picked. These scenarios will change what your objective is in the game. The first game that you play, it's recommended that you start with the establishing a network scenario, and each of these scenarios will have additional instructions on how to continue to set up the game. For example, in establishing a network scenario, both teams are going to place 7 markers over the shown openings. Their goals are to move their mechas through those openings, taking the marker off each time they do so. After all 7 of those markers are removed, the other team will then place 5 more out on openings of their own choice. This is the same thing to the Animal Clan. It's similar, except their markers are set on different openings, and some are the same as the other team. Again, once they have their 7 markers off of the board, the other team will place 5 more on the openings of their choice, and the first team to remove 12 total wins the game. Anyways, back to how to play the game. Players will take turns according to their turn order markers. Now, you might want to know this, or you might not care, but on the very first turn, the first player instead will draw an activation card and discard it without activating that mecha. And then they will draw a second one, and they will actually do the activation for that one. So this is done so that the first player advantage isn't as great as if they could activate 2. But 2 cards will be used, but every turn after that, 2 cards and 2 activations are performed. On a turn, there are 4 steps total. First, you will draw the top card of your team's activation deck. Each team will have a deck that consists of 3 cards of each of their 4 characters. Drawing a card will dictate which character you will be activating. So now you know who, you can then perform an action with that mecha, which is the second step. To activate one of the mechas, you will either be flicking it in some way or another, or if it's on one of the outer boxes on the lower level, you can launch it. Flicking your mecha will get better the more that you do it. For example, to go straight, you can put your finger straight down on the center and bend it back a little bit, and the pressure will propel it forward. To make it turn, you will want to flick the same side as you want it to turn. You can even get it to jump, which can give you some advantage in the game. And then you can do launching. Again, this is done if your mecha that is activated is in one of the lower outside boxes. You will take it out of the box, place it onto the launcher, and you will let it fly to a place that you more want it to be located at. Whenever the mecha stops moving, the activation is over. The third step is to do with all those things again, pretty much. So really, you'll be drawing another activation card. This might even show the same mecha that you just activated, and then you will activate it for the 4th step on your turn. So each player will essentially be performing 2 actions per turn, flipping 2 cards total and activating 2 mechas total, possibly the same one. Now remember those power-up cards? Now you can use a maximum of 1 card per turn, and some cards you will have to play before activation of a mecha, some you will have to do it post-activation, and some can be either or. There are even special ones that can be used in special circumstances. Just try to take advantage of those cards the best that you can when playing the game. Anyways, while playing the game, players will be knocking into each other or launching their mechas and sometimes not landing inside the box or the playing area. Whenever a mecha is launched and it doesn't land in the playing field, then it becomes damaged. When a mecha is activated and bumps into another mecha or more than one, when damaged, you will take the matching mecha card and you will flip it over to its damaged side. The second time that it gets damaged, it's knocked out or KO'd and taken off of its current spot and placed onto its card. The next time that mecha is activated with a player flipping over an activation card matching that mecha, it is then placed back onto its depot and can then be activated the next time its card comes up. Once you finish the 4 steps of your turn, you'll place the activation cards for that turn next to their mecha cards, and this ends your turn, and the next player will then begin theirs. Players will take turns over again in turn order until both teams have no more cards left in their activation deck. At that point, the round ends, and each team shuffles their deck to use again for the next round. Each player can then choose any number of power-up cards that they currently have and discard them, and each player will then refill their hand of cards back to the hand limit according to the number of players playing in the game. A new round will then begin, starting with the player with the first turn order token. Players continue until the game ends, which is done when one team achieves their win condition from the scenario. That team is declared the winner and will rule Neemus for all eternity. Each scenario is different each time you play for each side, and the players will be trying to perform different tasks. Like in another scenario, you will need to go and you will hit a 20-sided die that has numbers 1 through 5 on each face of that die. You will need to end your turn in a room with the same die, and that die needs to show a 1 through 4. So you will need to hit it to change the face to have a 1 through 4 and end your turn in that room. You will then remove that die and you will place a marker on the corresponding opening of whatever the die showed, and you will later need to go through that opening to take that marker off. Another scenario, you are trying to knock out the other player's mechas, and when you do that, you take one of the markers placed by their mecha card off to show that you've done so. Other objectives might be that you need more of your own mechas in a room more than the other team to take off one of those markers to say that you've satisfied that requirement. But pretty much you'll be trying to either target certain openings, rooms, areas, trying to knock into certain mechas, dice, or targets to complete a specified goal. Many times the goals overlap in which you'll be doing one thing and then it will set up for the next. So you have some control as to how you can set up the board for you to win the game, or you just go for it and wing it, which is totally fine as well. The game is highly hands-on, which is a big difference between a lot of other board games. Because of that, it's a skilled game, so you gotta learn how to flick and hit your mecha to do well in the game. The mini scenarios do a good job to first give some different variety of play, but also they're almost layered upon to make things more interesting. In many of these, the way that you accomplish the first part of your goal will determine the second part, or on other scenarios, the other team gets some say into how you finish the last part of the goal. And of course, they are trying to make it the hardest that they can, so that they have a better chance to finish their goal before you do yours. This game is a race, so it's the first one to finish their goals wins. The game has a theme and a story, which adds a little bit more to the game, which I like. The components are neat as the game is placed out to make a huge 2-level board. It's always exciting to find yourself making some almost impossible shots also through the holes and through the openings and through the top and bottom. Sometimes from luck, but soon because of pure skill. Ultimately, you really need to get your fingertips onto this ice-cool universe next-level game, Iron Forest by Brain Games. Again, this is Boardgame Brody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around and check out some other board game reviews to see what you might want to get to the table.